Recording on, please, Karen?
It's recording.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the May 7th, 2021 Electrical Work Examining Board meeting today. I'm going to do a little quick roll call of the board members. Peter Jennings, just signify by saying aye, please. Peter Jennings.
Aye.
Rich Bird.
Aye.
John Yusa.
Aye.
Paul Costello.
Aye.
Chris Brown.
He's not here.
You know, here, Jackie Laramie.
Here.
Okay, great. All right. Let's see. I see Howard's on here with us, and for the record, could we get is an Evan D I see joining us today? Evan, could you identify yourself?
Can you hear us, Evan? Let me do. I just want to make sure that he can hear us. Oh, okay. Can you hear us? Because I don't have him muted on my end, so.
Okay. I see he is muted right now, though.
Yeah, on his end, yeah,
Okay.
not on ours. So.
Well, Evan, if you can hear us, could you unmute yourself and identify yourself, please?
Maybe Evan Dantos.
Pardon me?
It may be Evan Dantos.
Okay, do you know who that might be, Paul?
Yeah, he's a lobbyist with us. I think he's been on prior.
Okay,
I'll see if I can reach out and confirm it's him.
okay. And okay, and good. And I see Howard Osden is with us, and Mr. Hurlbert is with us. Okay.
Also, Janita Hamill from Investigations Division, Consumer Protection.
How could I miss you?
Wishful thinking.
I didn't say that. You did. Yeah, thanks, Janita. I apologize for skipping over you. Okay, our first item of business is our minutes of February 19th, 2021. Everybody received a copy of those with their packet for this month's meeting. We had an opportunity to review those. Anybody have any questions, comments? If not, I'll take a motion first to accept the minutes.
I make a motion to accept the minutes.
Okay. I guess John Houston made the motion. I heard him first. And is there a second?
Rich Bird, I'll second.
Okay, thank you. All right, everybody's looked at these minutes, I trust. Is there any discussion on the minutes as submitted? Corrections, additions? Okay. If not, all in favor of accepting the minutes, raise your hand. We can all see us here. Okay. All right, the board unanimously accepts the minutes based on the attendance at the meeting today. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Comments or concerns of any person present today on any non-agenda item? Is there anyone here today that wants to address the board on any specific issue? Hearing none, we will move on. Next is the quarterly complaint status is presented by the PCP Investigation Division. Everybody should have received a copy of that. There's actually two reports. One goes from January through February 28th, and the other report goes from March through April. there any questions on any of that by the board members? Any of those? Janita, oh, I see Pam Brown has also joined us.
Yes, Pamela Brown, Department of Consumer Protection. I'm actually monitoring a witness statement, so I won't be able to attend to stay on. Janita will handle any questions, but I just wanted to pop on for a minute.
Okay, thanks, Pam. Appreciate that. Janita, do you have anything you want to add relative to this investigative report? I don't really see anything to question about it in my mind at this point.
Okay, Mr. Chairman and board members, what you have is 4 months worth of work. I do the reports in 2-month chunks because you seem to meet every other month. So you have what we've done or received up until this point. Mr. Chairman, if I might just remind your group, as I'm going to remind all the boards, when anonymous complaints are submitted to us, we don't have anybody to go back to get clarification in the event that we go, let's say it involves an investigation of a particular outfit and a site inspection. If we go on that day to the site inspection that we choose and there's no violations, and when we reach out to the company and there's no violations or anything given to us, anyone who was there who might know something, we have nobody to go back to. So therefore, then we have unsubstantiated allegations. And I only bring that up because a couple of your counterpart boards have a big issue with that. And I try to explain, if it's anonymous, myself and my staff, we are relying on the respondent, the contractor, the owner, the individuals to self-incriminate. And sometimes we are successful with what I like to call verbal arm twisting and asking questions and keep at it, keep at it, keep at it. And then we are able to prove some violations. But I'm only bringing that up because I've received quite a bit of pushback from a couple of other boards. And I'm going to just, as I go through this spring now, providing these board reports, just going to remind people that anonymous complaints are just that. The other thing is, if you know, or somebody in your group or somebody is going to be filing an anonymous complaint, please give us a location or some idea of what's going on. Please don't tell us, go to the shop. The shop people know what's going on. Don't give me the address of the location of the violation as the contractor's shop.
Right. And I totally understand your message here, Janita, and I totally agree with you. As we know, unfortunately, we do have to have an anonymous option in the complaint status. But when somebody files a complaint, and I think the only thing we can expect your people in your department to do is do what you've been doing. You follow through as best you can. I personally wouldn't waste a lot of time on it, because if the person making the anonymous complaint is not brave enough, if you will, to list their names so that you can get back to them with questions and other information that you might need, then I somewhat can question, in my mind, the credibility of the complaint itself. So I'm totally on board with the way you people are handling that one. And it's bothersome because of the limited number of inspectors that you have, and the complaints that come in, that you could be spending your time much better on something that is factual as opposed to anonymous. So the board members agree with that? I mean, I think we all on the board understand how that works, and it's pretty hard when you have a box to check off that says anonymous, and people do it with a. If you could, it'd be nice if we could put a little note there that says, "We're checking off the anonymous box. We have no way of getting back to you." But if they don't understand that, I guess I question the whole complaint itself and the credibility of the individual.
Mr. Chairman, Pamela and I have worked with our IT group and the director of the complaint center. And it does say in red now, thankfully, that you check anonymous, we can't get back to you to verify what claims you've made. And an anonymous complaint is fine, but help me and my staff help you. Give us a little more information, you know. But it does say that we can't get back, by checking anonymous, you understand we can't get back to you, and it might end up that it will be unverified. So
Yeah.
I'm just making sure I mention that to everybody, because it seems like, especially in the past 2 months, I've had a great influx of anonymous complaints coming in.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and I notice here on the report on the January January through February report, you've got, just look at the first two anonymous ones, which is the first and the third listing. The first one, it was unsubstantiated. You couldn't do anything with it. But the second one, I'm sorry, the third one listed actually proved out to have some merit to it, and you were able to deal with it with an ABC.
And
So-
that goes to the credibility of my inspector and the investigation that he did.
Yeah.
Because this comes down to that self-incrimination where we ask questions, we come at it with a different question, we keep, you know, what about this? Or as I like to say, you expect me to believe that in this entire time, there wasn't one time where you sent somebody who wasn't a registered apprentice out, or you didn't check their license close enough to see that it was expired, or they took a test 3 years ago and never passed and never took the test again. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yep. Yep. I get you. So, okay, I mean, that's really fair. That's understandable. I appreciate what the investigators are doing. Not only based on the limited resources you all have right now, but also into the COVID times and the restrictions and the difficulties that go along with all that. So, in my opinion, kudos to the department from an investigation standpoint in this period anyway.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, board members. Appreciate it.
But
And I will bring that back to my staff because they will appreciate it too.
yeah, but that doesn't mean you won't hear something different from me 6 months from now.
Mr. Chairman, after 27 years, I wouldn't expect it to be any different.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, anybody have any questions for Janita? No. I see a lot of nods, so no. All right, well, great. Thanks, Janita. Thank you very much. And thank Pamela, because I know she had to hop off, so.
Yep. Not a problem, Mr. Chairman, board members. Have a good day. Thank you, and I'll see you at the next one.
Okay, thanks, Janita.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay. Then the next item is old business, item number 1, task force working groups. The first one is continued education task force, which was Rich Berg, Paul Costello, and myself. As we know, we've made some recommendations to the commissioner. Previous meeting, relative to some suggested modifications to the continued ed regulations. And I did get a response actually from the commissioner in that regard. And I'll read it to you. And it was actually addressed to both myself and Mr. Appleby, the chairman of the plumbing board. So good morning. This is back on Thursday, April 22nd. I believe both of your boards have expressed interest in allowing online continued education classes to continue post-COVID, which requires updating the regulations. Below is language that the electrical board already voted in support of as part of the much broader set of suggested updates. We may have some slight language cleanup, but I think the concept of allowing these courses when approved by DCP and the board and limiting attendance numbers makes sense. I also don't object to requiring that they offer it at least 6 times a year. I have added Hurlbert in case he has any operational concerns with anything. And what she did is she attached, the commissioner actually attached the portion that we made modifications to as it relates to the online and the 6 classes and the limited number of attendees per class, per instructor, I should say. She goes on to say that, Larry, I know your board and other work groups and the work groups have a number of other regulatory and statutory ideas that we need to get back to you on. Realistically, that will probably need to be after the session. I appreciate the time people put into that and don't want you to think we forgot about it. Please let me know if you have any questions or concerns with this approach. And I've communicated back to the commissioner that when we put these recommendations together that we sent to her, that we totally expected that we would have much deeper conversations after the session because they're tied up with things going on over at the LOB. So it's interesting that the commissioner picked out this one in particular. Talking to her, she felt it would be easy, not easy, but relatively, I'm going to use the word easy, relatively easy to try to address this one in particular right after session. I think when we sit down with her and we see some language changes come back, we're going to also want to take a look at the other items in the regulations and see why we can't address those, so we can address the entire thing globally. There may be a procedural issue there. I'm not sure, but we'll take the lead for the commissioner. But I did want to thank both Rich and Paul for their work on this. And I think this is the first time we put together a task force to do these things in my tenure here at the board. And I think it's important that we do this, not on a regular basis, but somewhat regular basis. So any questions by anybody about the continued ed task force and where these things are going? Okay, hearing none. Okay. I'm going to come back to the continued education task force in just a minute, because I know they have a presentation that they want to make to the board, an initial presentation. 1B under old business, the statute and regulation task force. That's was Jackie, John, and myself, and we have yet to meet, and that's on my shoulders because I have a number of things going on right now and very difficult to set some time for. But we will meet on those things as soon as I can free some time up and work with everyone else's schedules. One C, license qualification task force. That was Peter and Chris worked on that along with myself. Those have already been submitted as well. And I suspect after session, these things will start getting some more action with some input from DCP legal and DC and the commissioner and DCP staff. So, okay. With that being said, I'm going to circle back to the continued education task force work group. And as many of you know, for a number of years since continued ed has been in there, we've been, from a technical standpoint, dealing with the code, the National Electrical Code, and the changes in the code as they happen from edition to edition. And they worked fairly well as far as breaking up the book in sections per year. The next code edition is not going to, we were hoping it was going to be accepted this past session, past fall, but because of everything going on with COVID, it's not. It looks like, I believe, Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it looks like it's going to be later on this year that they're shooting.
Yeah, actually, it looks like it's going to be October of 22.
October of 22 now, okay.
Yeah, we're going to go to the 2022 state building code and skip over the 2020.
Gotcha.
So when we do that, that'll reference the 2020 NEC, but we're a year away at this point.
Okay, which is okay, understanding the environment that we're all working under these days, and trying to get people together and have real good meetings. But I've asked Paul and Rich Brown from the task group, and I've asked them also to, and they've invited Chris Brown in on that, and I'm backing off of that right now because I'm letting them do their thing. But since the inception of Continue That, I've been doing most of the curriculums, and we talked about this and feel that this is a good time to really get back and to do some calculations, some things that we've heard people ask for. We'd like more of this and more calculations. So what our intent here is to develop from the board level. This is similar to what the plumbers have done over the years, is to develop from the board level a curriculum, a specific curriculum, specific topics, and I mentioned questions, specific questions, and that will be the curriculum that's available to the providers, and that will be the curriculum that they will all use, as opposed to just referencing the code book sections. Okay, and with that, I'll turn it over. I want to turn it over to Rich or Paul, whoever wants to take it, to explain what they've done so far and what they want to present to us today. So, one of you is going to take it.
I know, Paul, we, as a group, we put together that outline that you drafted. I don't know if we could share that today.
Yeah, I was just going to ask. I do have it available if.
Karen, would there be any way for us to be able to just to put that up on the screen?
Is it a document? I don't think I have a document though.
No. Would I be able to share my screen, Karen?
You should be able to. I think other people are allowed to. Like I said, I would, but I don't have it. Did you want it?
Yeah, you got it up, Paul.
Yep,
Okay.
That's it.
Do we have it there?
Yep.
Yes, that's there, Paul.
Okay, great. Thank you. So again, I want to thank Rich and Chris both as well, and Larry for the input. So what we identified were a number of different articles and sections in the 2017 NEC to discuss some of the calculations. And just looking at some of the bullet points, using nominal voltage values. So we wanted to make sure that we make it interactive where the participants have to actually get into the code book, make them think a little, and use some voltages that might be out of the norm from typical. 4-hour class, most of the time spent on the calculations, include the laws and standards as you see. Maintain the safety portion, and I believe, Rich, we're talking about maintaining some 70E with the references to the 2021 NFPA 70 changes.
That is correct. That is correct, Mr. Costello.
Yeah. Have the code calcs throughout the course kind of lead up and build upon each other. Address the limitations in Chapter 1, Section 110, because we see that quite often where some of the calculations are misapplied using the improper temperature ratings for conductors and terminals. Really just kind of go through different articles where we identified where we think the calculations are most commonly probably misapplied out in the field. Chapter 2, with lighting demand loads, we're seeing more with LEDs now, and some of the changes in the 2017 and anticipating changes in 2020 NEC, referencing those as, especially on the lighting side, those demands are starting to decrease with the efficiency. Looking at dryers and ranges on the residential side. Motors again in 430, some HVAC in 440, transformers, and maybe just to kind of touch a little bit on some of the changes with PV and rapid shutdown. Currently, the state amendment does not require, we deleted section 690.12 for rapid shutdown as a requirement for PV systems because of an effective date. When we do adopt the next state building code, which hopefully will be during that cycle within continuing ed, there will be changes to that. So maybe start bringing people up to make them aware of those changes. And what else am I missing here, Rich?
I think, just continuing on, like you said, you mentioned, Paul, we were talking about, the examples being as far as the conductor ampacity, the ambient temperature correction, as well as the temperature limitations on the terminals, the conductors on the terminals, box fill, conduit fill. We talked about something that's kind of out of the ordinary would be the conduit fill with the data conductors and other low voltage conductors, where as it affects to conduit fill, wireway fill. We talked about the cable tray. You mentioned it earlier. I think the one, Paul, that we talked about and that I think we feel as a group is the electric vehicle charging stations calculations, including the voltage drop, because that's a very important part of those particular units. We mentioned the appliance calculations, load calculations as it applies to dwelling units and non-dwelling units, transformer calculations. You mentioned earlier some additional changes. The top 10 changes, or the top 10 changes in the NEC, particularly one of them that we talked about was the reorganization of the tables in Article 310. That's going to be a big thing coming up in 2020. The expansion of GFCI receptacle, GFCI and AFCI protection in the 2020. And discussion about the emergency disconnect requirements in 2020 as it relates to dwelling units. That's going to be a big change. And it's already a question, I think, as providers, we hear that now.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's going to be a lot of education needed for that particular one.
Yeah. This looks very good, in my opinion. And I know you're going to be expanding on it as well, but there's a lot of there is a lot of material already here. But I think you said the most important thing that I was wanting to see happen out of all of this is that you get that classroom participation, as opposed to people just listening. Because we've heard of providers supposedly just reading their PowerPoints, and everybody just sits there and listens, and there's very little interaction. So I think it's important that we have that interaction. It's the most important part of any continued education program. And this will work, obviously, both in a situation of in-class presentations as well as online if we had to. So a great job, guys. I think anybody got any other questions on this particular portion? Because this particular portion addresses basically the unlimited license holder. I'm going to address the limited license holders in just a few minutes here, but any board member have any questions for Paul and Rich at this point?
So, did you guys come up with this based on what you're seeing in the field or trends or the changes? I didn't really understand at the beginning when you were explaining how you came up with like the topics for the presentation.
I think it's a combination of everything that you just stated, Jackie.
Okay.
As you know, Chris, myself, and Paul, all being educators, we deliver a lot of this material through the apprenticeship program, or we see this in the apprenticeship program. We see this through continuing education, and the feedback that all three of us get, from either building officials or being part of other committees, that these are the points or the weaknesses of most of us out there, because it's not something that we do every single day.
Right.
So, yep.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting how, the automobile industry is changing with having more electric vehicles, and now our industry has to respond to that. So I think that's kind of interesting that you have that in your list for developing the calculations. That's pretty cool. So anyways, I think that's exciting.
Thanks, Jack.
Comment?
Anybody else has a question from the board on any of this so far?
John User with a comment.
Yeah, John, how are you?
I have to say, my hat's off. Looks like a lot of work went into discussion on this, and I don't know how you're going to fit all of this into the time allotted. That's going to be probably the only thing. It really looks like they've covered everything from A to Z. And congratulations, guys. It looks like you did a good job.
I think getting it all in the time frame is going to be difficult, but as Paul said, and one of the things I had requested is that we try to do something that we continue to build upon, and as opposed to, say, just to use an example, taking a apartment building or a commercial building and determining the size of the service that's needed for that building. You kind of start there and you work backward. You work forward, but you work backwards, because people don't know where to start, basically. Okay. And even if they only get to a certain point, this could be continued in the following. So they're trying to basically, I think, ultimately try to almost build a one-line drawing in the end with these calculations, starting from, maybe something as small as, depending on it was residential or commercial. So yeah, they put a lot of work into this, a lot of thought into it. And I'm very impressed. This is my first time for seeing this summary right now, but yeah, great job, guys. And pass that along to Chris too. If I don't chance, when I see him and talk to him, I will do the same. So any other question by the board members or even the department? Oh, good. Okay, I guess not. So, that's great. One of the other areas that I'd like to see us be able to do something very similar to, and that would be in the limited license categories. God bless you, Peter. I saw that. Is in the limited license categories. And my intent there is to reach out to John and Peter from the board for some input there, as well as possibly reaching out to like IMTI or Cassia, those that are offering the limited license category courses with some of their experts in their levels to develop some course material very similar. So I will be reaching out to them in the very near future to try to do that. So, but as we all know, everything takes a lot of time to do. So I trust that John and Peter, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but you'd be willing to work on that.
I would be, Larry, no problem.
Okay, great. And I see John's got his thumb up. All right, great. So good. I'm just very pleased with the progress that we're starting to make on some of these things. The intent here is that when we put out the next provider package, that it'll be all there. We won't have to hear too much. We won't probably hear any, or hopefully any, comments from providers like, well, I don't have enough time to put this together. Well, it's done for you. So to speak, here's the Keon program, take it out, open it up, and get your instructors up to date on it and explain how it works. And hopefully in the near future, once we have this stuff all packaged together, we'll try to arrange to have a meeting with providers and their instructors as we have in the past, so that they understand the intent behind what we're trying to do and they understand what we want them to deliver and the importance of the interactiveness with the class. So great job, guys. Great job. And thank you, Paul and Peter. John and Peter. Anybody got any questions about any of that? I guess hearing that. Moving on, item number 2. Occupation Licensing Board's renewal form statement suggestion, I should say, to Commissioner of Consumer Protection. This is interesting. You all received a copy of it. It's a separate file that was in the packet, and it's titled Occupational Licensing Board's Renewal Form Statement Suggestions to Commissioner of Consumer Protection. And I will read it and explain the intent behind this. Request that the following statement be placed on all renewal forms for licensure in 2021, being sent out to occupational license types for contractors and journey persons. Okay. The important statement here is, as I read it, any person who willfully engages in or practices the work or occupation for which a license is required without having first obtained a Connecticut apprentice registration or license for such work as applicable, or who willfully employs or supplies for employment a person who does not have a Connecticut apprentice registration or license for such work, or who willfully and falsely pretends to qualify to engage in or practice such work or occupation, shall be guilty of a Class B, B as in boy, misdemeanor, section 20-341, penalties and violations of the Connecticut General Statutes. This would be put on the renewals for the electrical board, the plumbing board, the heating board, the elevator people, fire protection, sheet metal and auto glass people. The reason behind this, the purpose behind this, and I was actually very surprised to see this so quickly, was because we actually discussed something similar to this at the Department of Labor through apprenticeship. And our concern there, as well as I'm sure this board's concern is the number of people that are being employed by contractors that are not registering them. Okay. There are way too many. It's getting out of hand. We've had testimony at the State Apprenticeship Council by people that have been impacted by this. I have received calls from people that are impacted by this. And it's just a terrible situation that they're put into. We certainly recognize that a first-year apprentice is very green, has no knowledge, we're going to assume, of the laws and the requirements. And this first-year apprentice goes to contractor A and says, I want to become an electrician and I want to be an apprentice or whatever, a helper. I want to learn the trade. And the contractor hires them and doesn't register them, or tells them I'll register you, or tells them I got to try you out for 30 days or 60 days or 90 days or Lord knows how many days, of which there is no trial period. Okay. They need to be registered as the law states. And these people, as a first year apprentices, are not aware of the laws. Okay. So I look at them a lot differently than I look at a person that's second, third, or fourth year apprentices that are not registered, or that were registered and then went to work for somebody and didn't get registered. Okay. They certainly know about it. They know about it either because they were registered previously, or they know about it because of the industry and working with whoever they're working with. People talk, they don't understand, they know they got to be registered. So what we're looking to do here is to put this statement of awareness out to every contractor and the journey persons, because that way we don't have to try to do a special mailing or sorting things out. And somewhere down the line, these journeymen may become contractors. And these journeymen also work hand in hand with apprentices. Okay, so they can help enforce, I would say enforce, but guide the unregistered apprentice. The only thing that is different, I think some of this verbiage might be able to be condensed a little bit, although it's fine if we have room for it. I'm all for making it very clear on the renewal form, is that I'd like to see, just as we have a checkbox for the question of have you been convicted of a felony since your last renewal, and have you taken your continued education, a checkbox for that. I'd like to see this have a checkbox to it, which basically indicates maybe a little heading or something that says, I have read this statement below and understand it. Okay, something along that line. So we have an acknowledgement that somebody just didn't see a bunch of words on a piece on a form and didn't know anything about it later on. Down the road, hopefully, as we identify some of these violators, at least we can refer back to something and say, when you renewed your license back in 21, this statement was on the renewal form, and it was required that you check it in order for the form to continue to the next step in process. And that eliminates some of the ignorance, stand of ignorance that, I didn't know anything about that. I didn't know anything about that. And I think if nothing else, it's a very easy way to get a good message out to every license holder out there, okay, that this is a requirement. Even though they go to contingent ed every year, it's part of everybody, I think, everybody that I know of curriculum to state it. They still continue to violate it out there. And look, if you as a contractor want to be a violator, go right ahead. I can't control that. But don't do it at some younger or new person changing occupations expense. It's not fair to them. They then come to us before the board, they fill out an application and say, well, I got all this time. I mean, I know I have, some of you have seen them applications as well. We got some apprentices out there that are or unregistered apprentices that are more than 4 years into the trade and getting zero credit for it. Okay. It's not right. I truly believe that any of the instructional people that are teaching apprenticeship training include that in their apprenticeship training, that you need to be registered. Okay. I also understand that from a person's standpoint, that my boss told me he was going to register me. He keeps telling me, yeah, I forgot about it, and he didn't register me and what have you. That it's very hard for these people to come forward and issue a complaint about it, that I've been working here for 3 months and I can't get registered. My boss told me he was going to register me, because they're worried about jeopardizing their job that they need so badly to pay their bills in these times and support their families. So I would like to have input from the board members here on this statement, and like to ultimately we'll make a motion to make the recommendation to the commissioner on this, and hopefully we can get this put on that renewal form along with the checkbox. So with that, I'll take whoever wants to go first. I'll tell you what, I'll call you, maybe it's easier. Peter, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure, Larry. I agree with it. I think it is unfortunate, because I've seen it happen too, where people are taking the classes and they're even trying to do the right thing. They're taking classes on their own, and the contractor is just not registering with them. And it puts, it makes it tenuous for the employee at best. Do they go and complain and risk losing their job, or they want to continue in the field? But how do they continue in the field and move ahead to become a journey person if they're not getting registered time?
Yeah, great. Jackie?
Yeah, I think it's necessary. I mean, especially with, pending labor shortages. I mean, how many people are retiring from our industry, and we need people that are licensed to come back in and fill their positions. And if we don't have enough of them, that's not going to help anybody. So yeah, I agree with the accountability.
Okay, thank you. John? John, you're muted.
Definitely something should be placed. The burden is on the contractor, and we don't even know sometime, obviously, who they hire. And it's also to be brought up and emphasized in the tech schools that when people graduate, that they do have to be registered. The only other comment I would have is the fact that, you and I have seen a number of these in the last years have come up, and one of them, the fellow had, if I remember right, don't quote me on it, but I think it'd been close to 20 years as an apprentice. I remember that one specifically. And I think the point ought to be, as a fine on this, that if somebody does it the first year, they didn't have them registered the first year, so much money, the second year, double it, the third year, triple it, and make this thing really sting to the fact that you've got to get people to do this, and not just a $200 fine type of thing for it, but make it really make it really hurt that they've got to do it. No, that's my commentary.
And John, I agree with you on the, so to speak, on the fine situation. And I think, of course, that's a regulatory statutory issue. But I think this is kind of like the first step. And then I think we need to look at that, because I think that's a valid point. There's got to, the contractor has to feel a little bit of a sting on this, other than, all right, so I did it. Nobody did anything to me. You know, same attitude, cost of doing business. Yeah, good point, John. Rich?
I'm in total agreement with everybody that I'm hearing so far. I believe this should be a checkbox, that it's in there. I'm going to echo the same statements that John made about making this sting a little bit, because I think sometimes it's too easy for people just to say, you know, the penalty is worth the risk. I think we have to make this bite. We have to make this stick. So yes, I'm going to echo many of the same statements that were made by other board members here, that this helps educate everybody. I like the fact that it would go out on journeyman licenses, on all the licenses, because hopefully it'll catch on and educate everybody, not just the contractor, but the journey person as well, on this particular statement.
Thanks, Rich. You know, I just want to add something in regards to putting some sting into this thing. And when you put a financial sting into things, it still turns into the cost of doing business in people's minds, I think. And, you know, legislators aren't going to allow us to put mega fines on things like this, obviously. However, I think, and this is me just thinking out loud down the road here, maybe more something along the lines of, depending on the particular level of that violation, first, second, third, whatever, that there may be some suspension of license for a period of time, and maybe different periods of times relative to the level of the infraction. You know, all the way up to the possibility of revocation of a license. I mean, to somebody that just is not going to pay attention. So, but that's just thought for the future. But I think when you put, right now, when you put dollars on things, people are just looking at it as the cost of doing business. And but we can discuss that further. We'll certainly think about that. Paul?
Yeah, excuse me. I agree with everyone as they brought out the points, and you know, also 2 points, Larry, what you're discussing. If possible, if we do find a contractor hiring someone unlicensed, unregistered, if that could also be posted on the CTE license when we do the check on that license for any violations, you know, to make others aware that this contractor has some issues against them. You know, because too often we see, you know, cases where Janita and her department follows up with it, but then we go to look up that contractor after the fact and it doesn't show anything on there, you know, especially if it's been repeated, you know, so it might be an opportunity to really send that message out there that this doesn't go away. And the other point was, we do discuss it in the continuing ed, but I was glad to see that the other boards are in support for those trades that are licensed that do not do continuing education each year. This way, everybody in the industry will be aware of it.
Okay. And what's your feeling about a checkbox, Paul?
I totally support it. Absolutely, yeah.
All right. Mr. Hobart's on with us today. Rich, do you have any thoughts based on our conversation at this point that you'd like to add? And I don't
Yes,
mean to
what-
put you on the spot, so I just,
Yeah. What I would like to say, the reason why this came up is because, and we've had, let's start over again. The renewal forms for various occupations have blank space left on them after they are generated, whether they're sent to you by email or by the postal service. And a few years ago, we started adding verbiage in that blank spot. Like one time, I think we had that you have to get registered with the Connecticut Department of Labor. I don't remember all of them, but we've been putting information in that blank spot. And then I thought for this year's renewals, which go out in August for heat and cooling and elevator, and in October is the plumbing and the sprinkler fitters, and September is the electricians and so forth, that we just put this generic word in that blank spot. So we can't do a checkoff right now. That's another whole, there's no room in that portion of the renewal. Right now, we have the felony. Have you been convicted of a felony since your last renewal? And I have completed continuing education as required. In order to make a change there, to have them do another checkoff saying they've read the attached statement or what have you, then it goes through legal and it becomes a wording issue. And I didn't want to screw up everything, especially under the circumstances of COVID. So I just wanted to use the blank space and put this generic statement there so that all licensees receive it. And I think if they have it and there's somebody standing next to them on a job site, and they can say, here, let me show you why you should be licensed and registered. Look what this law says. You know, I'm just using up the blank space. That's all I'm doing with this. So if you want some type of acknowledgement, this is going to licensees who already have a credential in their pocket and they're properly licensed.
right.
So for them to sign something saying I read a statement that I should have my license that I'm renewing right now, you know, I mean, that's fine if that's what you want to do, but I can't do it right now under the circumstances of what's required to do that.
Mhm.
So I'm just using up blank space on the renewal forms. We do it for home inspectors, like architects have continuing education now. So their renewal form will indicate to them, hey, the new law passed for continuing education for architects. You have until the year 2022 to get X number of hours done, et cetera. You know, so that's what we use this blank space for. So for this year, I just wanted to put the statement. I'm gonna reference the entire law down below on that document where it says section 20
Yep.
340, whatever it is. So
Yeah.
I'm just gonna do the whole law verbatim, so I don't have to go through legal because I went and narrowed down the wording. So, you know, the whole law speaks for itself. That's the way it's in the statute. And up above on that document, you see, I tried to make a shorter version, but then I have to start going through legal, and they have to say why did you leave out certain words, or how do they know where that statement came from, and yada yada yada. So
Gotcha. I get
this
you.
is all I'm doing with it. All the other boards have agreed for now, and like I said, it's to make use of blank space, because I noticed a few years back that renewal forms are going out and there's room on them. So then Licensed Services Division, Michael Elliott, said to me, do you want to use that space for something? So I've been working with Mike Elliott and Cynthia Clavat, who actually creates all the wording on the renewal forms every year. And we've been diligently, as each occupation comes up, which we have like, you know, a couple hundred, we've been slowly asking the question of whoever in the agency, is there anything you want in that space that's special for this year to let licensees know? So
Hey, Rich.
we didn't have any tremendous law changes. The words testing and inspection got added in the definition of the various occupations in chapter 393.
Yeah.
That's too hard to explain right now because the statutes have never been updated like they normally are every other year because of COVID. So it's not like I could even put a link to reference that.
Yeah.
So that's, you know, that's something else. So that was a thought, but then I thought this would be a good thing because maybe somebody will show it to somebody else or their mother or cousin or whatever and say, here, this is what the law says. That's why you should have an apprenticeship card or a license. That's all.
Okay. No, this is all good. My thought on the checkbox again is, as I explained, for them to acknowledge that they've seen it and they read it. If it's if it's problematic, as you've explained, I would agree with just going forward as it is, so that we can get it in this next renewal, I should say, and deal with something down the road on it. But I think it's important. The important thing is to get the message out there, and I think we can do that.
Yeah, and I think it's good maybe to have it now with the checkbox, but I mean, that's something, that takes IT, that takes legal to verify the verbiage and all this other stuff, so.
Hey, Rich, curiosity.
Yeah.
Are you able to bold print your statements?
You mean this verbiage here, you mean?
Mm-hmm, yep. On the
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Okay.
It's nothing that we do. It gets done by License Services Division, which is in control of all the renewal wording.
Yeah.
So,
all right, well, maybe we can make that as part of the motion, that either a checkbox if possible, and or bold, making the verbiage bold if not, would be an alternate way, just to make sure that people just at least do everything we can to put it literally in their face, I guess.
Yeah. I'll check directly with the Cindy that does it, because she's going to be the one that's going to put her foot down and say no or yes, or that's not what I can do with all the fonts and everything she has to work with. So, I will ask if she could do both, but.
Do you have to put this in multi-languages?
Not yet, but
Okay.
it probably is coming.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
You can use a translation dictionary if you're having trouble, Larry.
Say it again, Rich, you broke up.
You can use a translation dictionary if you're having trouble.
Oh, thank you. That's what I did do. I did that on this one.
And we can give you extra reading time.
Thank you. All right. So obviously the board's very supportive of this. So could I get somebody to make a motion to recommend that we support including this language on the license renewal forms, and if possible, well, I don't think we even need to put the checkbox in it at this point, because we know the problems out there. It's important to get it out there, and that if possible, that maybe it be bold printed if possible to stick out more. So somebody want to make a motion to that effect?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Byrd.
Chair, yep. I'll make a motion that we include this verbiage on the renewal license forms. And if possible, that if we could, to make sure that it is bold, so that it does stand out.
Okay. There's second to it.
Second the motion.
Okay, Mr. Costello seconded. Excuse me, any further discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none. Everybody in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, let the record show that all board members voted in favor. That being said, there's no opposition and no opposition. Okay, thank you. And Rich, thanks again. Again, these are important things that we're trying to get through to people. So, and we know we're hitting a big audience, even though the violators are relatively small in numbers. But okay, moving on. Number 3, under old business, update on status of extension of continuing education requirements. Reese, I think, is aware, April 19th, the governor's executive order on continuing education ceased. Okay, so there are no, as of April 19th, there are no continuing education requirements allowed online for electrical continued education. And I know there's still questions that come in to the department. Karen fields those on that, and thank you for reiterating everything to people, but that's what it is, what it is. And as I indicated earlier in the meeting, we're looking at maybe adding some language relative to online and when it would apply and what it would take to get it approved. So any question on the extension of that? No. Okay. New business, the application review working group update to be provided by designated board member. That's me. We meet very regularly, once a month, and review applications. I think for the most part has been moving very good. We're averaging, I'd say, about 15 applications monthly. We're still finding that people don't read the requirements of what they need to include with an application, and we're rejecting them for that reason, that they need to submit the proper information. In many cases, probably 90% of them, they're lacking OSHA 30, and we're requiring them to provide their OSHA 30 card or take the OSHA 30 class and provide the card. Even if they meet all the other qualifications, that's one of them, because that's one we train everybody here in Connecticut on anyway. So again, seems to be working relatively quick. We seem to be moving it along even faster every meeting, because we're kind of got a flow going here. Okay, anything on that from anybody? Okay.
Larry, I find that I'm still teaching the prep course for the E2s. I'm still finding people coming through who are signed off who do not have OSHA 30 cards. The last class I just had a couple of people who didn't have OSHA 30s.
I don't understand how that's happening.
Well, I can tell you that they were from, and I think it's coming in from like the Lincoln Techs and Porter and Chester, and where they're just looking at that and saying, okay, they have that training, so therefore they must have their OSHA 30. I don't know, but I'm finding, again, because I ask every class how many people have their OSHA 30. And I think out of this last class I had 3 of them who didn't have the OSHA 30 in.
And that would be 3 out of about how many?
It was 3 out of 5, 3 out of 6.
Oh, pretty heavy percentage.
Yeah.
Okay. We can talk with we can talk with DOL, and we got to make sure these providers understand that that's a requirement. I don't know why they don't.
Larry, Larry.
Yeah, Rich.
I think that, someone's got to get on the ball at DOL when it comes to keeping track of the approved school-related instruction providers, whether they're private or public. And I would think they would have a complete list of who's approved to give apprenticeship courses, and possibly they could do an email reminding all the ones that are on the list that are approved, public and private, to teach apprentices the specific school-related instruction in the various occupations, that OSHA 30 is one of the requirements. I think what the problem is when it changed from building trade safety as a title, and then it all switched to OSHA 30. I think that's where it gets dropped, because OSHA 30, you got to go online and take it someplace else. So, and none of these schools are double checking to make sure before they give a diploma or what have you, that they have a copy of that OSHA 30 proof, as part of their final sign off on the student. So
Yeah,
I don't know any place where you can get a master list of all the schools that are approved and their contact information, but I would think DLL would have that internally.
well, yeah, I think it's on their website, to be honest with you. But, all right.
But I mean, to get the actual email addresses and specific contact person,
Yeah.
I know for even like us, the tech school system with the OSHA 30, that varies by school. It actually varies by department for all three of the licensed trades, electrical, plumbing, and HVAC. Some of them give the OSHA 10, some of them at a minimum, they all get the OSHA 10, but not every department, every trade school gives an OSHA 30. And they get their, but that's, like I said, I find that most of my people I'm teaching the prep courses for are from the, the other providers, the Porter and Chester and those, and Lincoln Tech. And those are the ones that I'm finding that don't have the OSHA 30.
Right.
Larry?
Yes.
As far as registered apprentices are concerned, when the employer has to fill out the, AT-23 form,
Yeah.
signing up on their working hours,
Yeah.
maybe that form needs to be changed where it says, in addition to filling out this AT-23 form, also attach a copy of the OSHA 30 certificate. Maybe that's a way to pick up on it too,
Mm-hmm.
But for people asking for equipment experience and training, luckily right now they go before the working groups, and we just automatically let them know they're missing that, and we let them know up front when they say, how do I apply for equipment experience and training? We have in there, also include an OSHA 30 card with your application,
Right.
So we're probably catching up to those people faster than the people that are actually registered as apprentices, because the schools are dropping the ball on asking for the OSHA 30 card as part of their curriculum sign off.
Yeah. Okay. Paul? Maybe this is something we can bring up at the next council meeting, state apprenticeship council meeting. If you'd make a note for yourself too. I'm not sure I'm going to make that meeting, but I will talk to. I'll try to talk to Todd about that in advance anyway. But something that we could. I don't see why we can't get the information so that an email can be sent out by the Department of Labor advising these people that they need that OSHA 30.
Upon completion. Okay, I'll make a point to bring that up as well.
Okay. Because I can see how it's like it's slipping right through. They sign off on it, and it goes. They make their application, goes to PSI. PSI sees it signed off. I mean, the only other way to catch it is every application has to go before us, and that's not necessary. So, okay, yeah, we're gonna follow that, Rich. I think you good suggestion.
Would it be possible to have that as a requirement for our application for all licenses to have a copy of the OSHA 30 card submitted? Just picking up what Peter had mentioned. So if we have a VOTEC student from school A that it's part of their requirement, but school B may not require that for that particular craft. This way here, everybody upon application, that's just one additional document that needs to be submitted.
Right.
It'll be consistent across the board.
Rich, can you comment on that? I mean,
Yeah, I'm thinking about it right now.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe there's a way we could. It's a little bit of a project, but maybe I could change the application form itself to say, in addition to above, make sure you attach the OSHA 30 card.
Right.
The problem is our applications are generic, and they're used across all kinds of license types. So, and I don't know if the class board is asking for that. Certainly the guys that do automotive class that use the same application form wouldn't be taking OSHA 30. So I'll have to give it some thought. We could have maybe PSI put in the specific bulletins. In addition to filling out this application, attach your OSHA 30 card, but half the kids don't read the entire bulletin for some reason. I mean, the place to nip it is to have nobody gets an apprenticeship completion letter unless there's an OSHA 30 card attached, attached to an apprentice training rep doesn't sign them off. That gets rid of all the registered people that have to have it. And then the unregistered people that ask for equivalent experience and training, whether in state or out of state, they come before the working group. And the email they get initially on how to apply for equivalent experience and training says, not only you have to show equivalent, but you have to also include OSHA 30 card.
Right.
So
and you're right. I'm not sure I'll find out, but I'm not sure the plumbing board even requires OSHA 30. I think
no, the heating cooling board, I think, was starting to ask for it. Plumbing board was on some of them, but we need to get consistency from all the boards, and even the automotive and plat class board. The plat class people definitely would say OSHA 30. So for those type of applicants. So I think and certainly the elevator people would ask for OSHA 30 plus your union card. But but anyway, I mean, we'll get the working groups together.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, it's just too bad because it's part of the curriculum and no one's verifying that part of the curriculum.
Well,
Mr. Chair?
That's part of what concerns me a little bit in that, and I'm thinking is that perhaps the State Apprenticeship Council can request from each provider what they cover on safety. Because if you got to use somebody as I think Peter referenced, somebody as an example like Lincoln Tech, okay, maybe they're not teaching, maybe they're not doing a OSHA 30, and they need to know that if they don't know that the old building trade safety is not the course that you should be teaching. You should be teaching and requiring OSHA 30 from your people, or advising them that they need to get it. Whether you have an in-house person that can teach it or you don't.
The problem of what's on the DOL website for the past numerous years is that it never gets updated. You know, all it is a report about all the schools and what schools are approved for different school-related instruction. I mean, it just there's nothing clean on that website. You know.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm talking about, Larry, where there's that one document where what's his name there did a study of all the schools, came up with whatever it is, 30-page document, and it's really a report to all the schools, but it's being posted as something that all the apprentices are supposed to use.
Right.
Mr. Chair, I know when most of the providers were going through our apprenticeship programs were going through the crosswalk that Mr. Herbert was talking about, that John Walesky put together. That was part of it. That was in there. That as an approved apprenticeship program, that you had to have that as part of your program. It was actually a replacement to the building trades safety portion of that 30-hour portion or 32-hour portion of it. I think it's just a matter of, like Mr. Herbert said, that, you know, it's got to start to be clamped down from maybe the Department of Labor to these providers, that is part of the program. That was part of the crosswalk. I remember going through it. You know, on our end, Paul, you're shaking your head. Yes, you remember that. We talked about that. Absolutely. We talked about that. And I think it goes back to an accountability thing, making sure that these providers are accountable when they're handing out these completion certificates, that they are following the curriculum 100%.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Between Paul and I, we're going to follow it up with on the council level with DOL and see what we can do from that end. I think that's the best way to approach that. So, and Rich, you know, you might look at the PSI bulletin and see if they can add that in there as one of the requirements without it being a big problem.
Yeah, well, PSI will do anything for me if I tell them I like to have it put in there, and maybe that'll help. But of course, nipping it right at the school level is the way to do it.
Yeah.
Because no kid should get a Penn Foster certificate of completion of heating, cooling, electrical, plumbing, pipe fitting course or whatever. If they didn't even verify proof of the OSHA 30. Now, whether they tell the kids go online and take it yourself rather than us having you do it during our class time, fine, but they should be asking for confirmation of it.
Right. Exactly. Okay. All right, let's, Karen, can you keep that as an item for old business next month? And that is the, just some follow-up discussion relative to the OSHA 30 requirement for all providers for A&D?
Yeah.
Okay. That way we won't. I'm not sure yeah, there's a council meeting, I think the 17th or something of May. So. All right. Anything else you want to add to that discussion? Okay, here not. Okay. Item number 2 under new business, 21 contingent education provider submissions. The following providers have been approved for 2021 cycle. That's Cassia and IMTI on the unlimited and limited license types. We have no correspondence that I'm aware of. So before we head to closing the meeting, is there anyone here that has anything that they want to bring up before the board, comments or concerns that we haven't discussed today? Okay, hearing none. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting. They all raised their hand. They didn't. Not one of them made a motion, Karen.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second.
I'll third.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you all. And we will be talking soon. Thanks very much.
Take
Take
care.
care, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Have
you.
a great day.
See you later, guys.
Thanks, Karen.
You're welcome.
Yeah.